Okay, to add auto-completion to these text boxes, we're going to use a jQuery plugin called Type Ahead, which is developed by the Twitter team. So open up Package Manager console and install package twitter.typeahead. Now we go to our bundle config and add the type ahead script in our lib bundle. So scripts type ahead.bundle.js. Next, we need to borrow some styles from type ahead website because this NuGet package only contains the scripts and no style sheets. So open up Google and search for typeahead.js. And then go to the examples page. So look, this is the kind of look and feel I would like to have in our application. So right click somewhere, view page source. You see example.css. Let's have a look. So here we have a bunch of generic styles, which we are not interested in. Scroll down until you see this declaration. Type ahead class, tt-query, and tt-hint. Now we're not going to copy these particular classes, so scroll down a bit more. From the next class where you see this one, type ahead with background color set to FFF. So copy from here all the way up to here. Copy. Now back in Visual Studio, let's go to the content folder and add a new style sheet. We call this typeahead.css. Paste the styles, save. Now back to the bundle. We should add the CSS to our CSS bundle. So content/typeahead.css. So this is all the plumbing work we have to do. Now we need to use the plugin. One more time, back to the examples page. Click on this link, remote. This is an example of type ahead with a remote data source, like a web API. So you see we have the markup here, which is basically just an input with the class type ahead, and this is purely used for presentation to make it look modern and beautiful. And here's the JavaScript that we need to copy and bring into our project. So copy these. Back in Visual Studio, let's go to our new .cshtml view. So this is our video rental form. Now on the bottom, we add the script section. So section scripts, script tag, and then the standard jQuery initialization. So when document is ready, paste that code here. Now let's go through it line by line. First of all, I'm going to rename best pictures to customers. Now you can see this customers is set to a new Bloodhound object. Bloodhound is the suggestion engine behind type ahead. So it encapsulates all the business logic for auto-completion, such as calling the backend API, caching the result, and so on. Now here we have a property called datum tokenizer, which references a function that takes a datum and transforms it into a bunch of string tokens. So what we have here basically means look at the value property of customers and use white space to tokenize them. These tokens are required by Bloodhound to do its job. Now, how exactly this works, honestly, I don't know. You need to read documentation of Bloodhound or look at its source code. But we need to change this value to name because our customers don't have a property called value. We want to tokenize their name. We also have query tokenizer, which is again a function that transforms query into a bunch of tokens. Next, we have prefetch, which is useful for providing data upon initialization. And this prevents additional requests to the server. Now, in this case, we're not going to use this, so delete. Now, in the remote property, we need to change the URL and set this to /API/customers. So this is our customers API, right? Now we need to provide a parameter here. Let's call it query and set it to %query. This variable is specified here in the wildcard. And basically, what the user types in the text box will be placed here at runtime. So with this, later we can filter our customers and return those who match the query. Next, we get a reference to our text box. I'm going to change this to an element with the ID customer, which means we should assign this ID to our text box. So further up, here's our text box. So I'm going to give it an ID, customer. Now back in our JavaScript code, the first argument to typeahead method is currently null, but we can pass an object and configure the behavior of typeahead. For example, we can set min length to 3, so typeahead will query the server when the user types at least 3 characters. We can also set highlight to true, so the characters in the search result that match our query will be bold, as you will see shortly. Next, we need to change this name property here to customers. Display specifies what property of our customers we should display in the suggestion list. So again, I'm going to change this to name. And you can see the source of this typeahead plugin is customers, which is our Bloodhound object here. So this is how we set up typeahead. Now let's test this. Build, back to Chrome. You can see our customer text box looks a bit different from our movie text box, and this is because of the styles we have brought from typeahead. Later we're going to fix this, so for now don't worry about it. Now let's search for, there you go. So we got auto-completion. And note that in the search result, the first 3 characters of Mary are bold. This is because of highlighting feature that we enabled. Now one thing we need to add here before we finish this lecture is handling the selection event of typeahead. So when the user selects one of these customers, I want to know what customer it was, so later we can send it to the server. So we can chain the jQuery on method here on. The name of the event is typeahead:select. So if you look at the typeahead's documentation, you see this plugin triggers different kinds of events that you might be interested in. Here we provide a callback function with 2 parameters, E for the event and customer, which is the selected customer. Now at this point, I want to store that customer somewhere. I would like to go on the top and declare an object called VM, which stands for view model, and initialize it to a blank object. So earlier, you learned about view model on the server. We used it to encapsulate data for a given view. Here we have view model on the client. Now in our callback function, when we get this customer, I'm going to set vm.customer_id equals customer.id. So later, when the user submits the form, we're going to send this VM to our web API. And now here's your exercise. I want you to add typeahead plugin to the movie text box on this page. Handle the selection event, but for now, just display the selection on the console. Don't worry about setting anything in the view model. We'll look at that later.